The stratosphere on this planet was a rather uncertain concept, just like directed gravity. The thickness of the atmosphere could in some places reach several thousand kilometers. At such heights, the understanding of the horizon becomes blurred. It seems that under these conditions one can rely only on gravity or direction of light. But even here, everything is not simple. Floating pieces of land in the clouds could be so large that they created their own gravity, and the light in such a thick atmosphere scattered so much that it could turn into one endless blue, where the idea of a horizon line no longer existed. And when you found yourself in such a realm of chaotic matter, it was easy to get confused about where is up and where is down. Nevertheless, life existed here as well. Flora and fauna with their own ecosystem, food chains, evolutionary processes, and their own laws of survival. And, like in another parts of this planet, there were fairly developed communities of local tribes with their own culture, language, and socio-political structure. The only way of orientations for the inhabitants of such communities were the so-called policies, or beacon cities in all senses of the word, that had been built over thousands of years. Brick by brick they constantly grew, viewing the evolution of cultures and technologies into their foundation. An interesting feature of these cities is their overall architectural structure. Since the flying islands have limited material resources and rather fragile gravitation stability, the construction of the city had to be done carefully and in balance. At the same time, throughout their history, civilizations competed with each other over who would have the tallest palace tower, which was and still a symbol of power and success of the community. No matter what internal upheavals, revolutions, or changes happened inside the cities, the tower had to grow. But due to limited resources, all that remained was to take building materials from the outskirts and use them for the central tower. Yes, these cities had a trade economy that helped to purchase building materials from outside. But the force that kept these islands in the air also had own mass limit. Therefore, at some point, when it became noticeable that the city was lowering its orbit, a decision was made to stop the delivery of building resources, and all that remained was to rebuild their own structure. Thus, century after century, these cities turned into solid vertical columns, floating in the clouds along their stable orbits, with populations of hundreds of thousands of inhabitants. Each of these columns has its own distinct silhouette connected to its culture and scientific achievements. Knowing the season and noticing the silhouette of such a city, one can always determine in which part of the planet and what height you are. The city Alfaring is a city with a sports and athletic cultural system. Therefore, its silhouette is characterized by its splitting into two towers, one of which is a sports arena for 15,000 visitors. Such a silhouette is unique, but it came at a very high cost for the island's balance. Almost a third of the city's infrastructure in the lowest part of the so-called column lives and works only to maintain mass balance. These are complex engineering solutions combining windmills, sails, and ventilation pipes that ensure the circulation of warm and cold air along the entire length of the structure, creating a kind of jet thrust in the nozzles located at the bottom of column. These jet nozzles maintain the balance, but such efforts fully justify themselves. This city has always been and will remain the most impressive center of athletics competitions between the policies. Once a year, the city turns into a densely populated, noisy anthill, where for several dozen days a festive and sometimes even hostile atmosphere raged between representatives of different policies. Nevertheless, it is always an unforgettable spectacle. Around the perimeter of the arena, of dozens-meter banners with the emblems of all the policies arriving for the competition are displayed. The walls of the column city are covered with myriads of colorful vertical tents that form entire small settlements with participants and their supporters. Noise, joy, and battle fill the entire length of the column for many days, and then, once again, quietly floating white obelisk in the clouds with arena, preparing for new competitions in the next year. Thank you for listening to my little story. See you in the next parts.